Welcome, everyone, to the stress session. My name is Maria Pajan, and I'm with the Center for Innovation in Campus Mental Health. This session is intended for post-secondary students, and in particular, for international students studying across Canada. It will provide some high-level information on loneliness and is intended as an educational session. It is not meant as a therapeutic intervention. The objectives of this session is to provide students with an understanding of what stress is and how it may impact them. We're also going to be providing some really good concrete strategies that you can put into place to decrease its occurrence. Let's take a moment and set the context. We are living in very stressful times. Many people are still feeling the repercussions of the pandemic. Every time we turn around and we turn on the news, we are inundated with world events and the news, and this can just increase our sense of foreboding. It would be really great right now if you take a moment and you begin to think about what is really stressing me out at this point in my life. What are the things, what are the issues that are creating stress in my life? Is it school? Is it friendships? Is it relationships? It's really important that we build awareness of the factors and the issues that might be increasing our stress level so that we can begin to tackle them and look at strategies that might be able to prevent them. Stress, what is it? Stress is a response, a normal response to activation or stimulation of our system, and it can occur in a number of domains. So, for example, we might experience social stress, we might experience physical stress, mental stress, and or spiritual stress. Why don't we take a little bit of a deep dive into what these types of stress are? Social stress, for example, might be the expectations our families have on us, the expectations we put on ourselves. It might be tests, assessments. For me right now, as I speak to you, it could even be public speaking. And for some folks, it could even be the social stress of entertaining people. Another type of stress that we might experience is physical stress. So exercise can create stress, but so can things like hunger, fatigue, thirst, and even the temperature in a room. Another type of stress that we might experience is mental stress. And mental stress is the type of stress that's caused by deadlines, by worry, by cognitive ability. Again, the kind of stress that you might experience during exam period. The last, or one of the other pieces of stress that might occur is emotional stress. And this is the type of stress that results from relationships. So if you are having a fight with your roommate, if you are having a fight with a parent, that might lead to stress. And lastly, spiritual stress. Spiritual stress might come about when we have lost meaning in our lives or lost a sense of purpose in our lives. Changes in our level of stress, like changes in our mood, are normal. I want to stress that. They are normal. And they are a normal response when we are reacting to circumstances or contexts in our lives. However, when a barrier gets thrown into this natural response mechanism, it might get jammed or stuck, and a conflict can occur. And when this conflict occurs, it's really hard for us to regulate our stress level or respond to stress. The most common thing that sort of gets stuck and creates an issue is anxiety. And you don't need to know all of the details, but it's really important to understand and remember that this system is able to regulate itself. And when it detects the presence of a stress hormone, it may activate a switch off mechanism. And again, that's where we feel that inability to move forward or where stress may get the best of us. Let's take a moment and take a step back and acknowledge the fact that there is actually a good type of stress. And that type of stress is called eustress. When we feel eustress, we might feel confident, adequate, and stimulated by the stressor. It's actually the type of stress that helps us stay motivated, that helps us work towards our goal and make us feel really good about life. It can even improve cognitive functioning and memory. So again, if you are stressed and you are sort of trying to learn something new and you are being stimulated in that way, our cognitive functioning is expanding, our ability to remember is expanding, even our attention span and productivity are expanding. Again, moderate amounts of stress can train us to deal with similar instances and can help us grow. So the first time you do something, it might feel like the worst thing in the world. But the second time you do that, you begin to develop strategies and understand better possible outcomes. A healthy amount of stress helps us with our day-to-day lives, and it feels good, and it makes us feel alive and excited about life. However, it's when the unhealthy amounts of stress happen that it begins to dysregulate our access, and this can impact that ability to switch off. Let's take a moment and think about what behaviors tell you that you are stressed. What is it that gives you an indication that maybe you are getting to a point in your life where stress is really impacting that day-to-day life and day-to-day functioning? Signs of stress can manifest in numerous ways. Each one of us is different, and for each one of us, this is going to look very different. For some of us, it might be physical. So when we are feeling stress, we might develop headaches. We might not be sleeping. We might be eating more. We might be eating less. For others, a stress results in more of an emotional response where we feel angry, irritable. For some of us, it might be sadness, or for other of us, it might actually be the lack of feeling. So we begin to feel numb. For others, the impact of stress may cause cognitive issues. So we might not be able to concentrate or focus. So for example, during an exam, you've studied, you know your material, and all of a sudden it's a blank slate. You cannot remember anything. And lastly, for others, it might be around social, you might see the impact socially. So you may begin to cut yourself off. You may not be socializing with your friends. You might be isolating. Stress is particularly common in times of transition. So social isolation has become more abundant lately during COVID, during the pandemic, but it is also something that a lot of international students may initially experience when they come to study in a new country. Loneliness can be something that is experienced by some regardless of stress, but it is something that can be exaggerated and can exaggerate how we deal with stress. So again, the more isolated we feel, the more feelings of stress that we may experience. Let's take a moment and think about some of the strategies that we can put into place to support us when we are feeling stress. The first one I'd like to talk about is we phrase it as name it to tame it. So in naming and understanding our feelings as stress, we can begin to understand the underlying emotions it brings and address them. Emotions are not right or wrong. I'm going to repeat that because I think it's a really important point. Emotions are not right or wrong. Rather, understanding what we are feeling and being able to accept it and name it is the first step towards improving the situation. The second strategy is seeking connections and support. It's really important for us to connect with people. This can be on a one-to-one basis, or it can be in a group. Again, the pandemic has shown us that making those human connections and having support from others is really, really important. Joining a social group, a community center, are all ways of beginning to create new connections in Canada. The next strategy we're going to talk about is routine. Encouraging predictability in your routine when you experience stress is really important because it gives us more of a sense of control. Respond to the aspects that you can control when a problem arises and work towards solving that problem in smaller, more manageable pieces. For example, if you missed a class due to being sick, and you are likely to feel really overwhelmed by the amount of content that you have to catch up with. However, if you break it down by topic and concept you have to cover across a span of time, it might look less daunting to complete. So again, take it in bite-sized chunks rather than expecting yourself to learn everything overnight. Another way of dealing with stress is to practice the concept of mental rehearsal. Visualize yourself attaining the goal that you want to achieve. This might look like picturing yourself doing a presentation calmly to a class, or picturing yourself starting and completing an assignment, but really picturing yourself accomplishing and doing the item, doing the duty, doing the task that stresses you out in a successful manner. This can be really helpful for reframing your mindset and providing a new perspective. Another way of challenging stress and really going in and creating a way of decreasing stress in your life is through positive self-talk. And this is engaging in an internal dialogue that supports you in reaching your goal. What's really interesting is that research shows that when people speak to themselves in the third or second person, it can actually decrease emotional distress even more. So, for example, instead of saying, "I can do this," think about it as, "Hey, Maria, you can do this. You can get through this exam period. You are capable, and you have completed similar assignments on time with the skills you have. Maria, you got this." Another way of beginning to deal with stress and really getting at stress at its core is taking a moment to look at approach coping. So approach coping is a great concept for students to begin to put into their lives. Studies have showed that avoidance and approach coping determine how loneliness, or stress rather, can influence academic performance, stress tolerance, and overall mental well-being among students. But what is approach coping, and how can you put it into place? Approach coping involves behaviors or thoughts that revolve around problem solving or seeking information. This can look like actively seeking advice, assistance, and emotional support from others. It primarily consists of two ways: primary control and secondary control. Primary control is acting on the source of stress, and secondary control, which is adapting to the source of stress. This is a much better way of dealing with stress than avoidance coping. Avoidance coping involves directing away from the threat by either withdrawing or distracting from the unpleasant feelings or thoughts. It's hiding your head in the sand and not actually addressing what is in front of you and what is causing you stress. And it can be beneficial in the short term, but really, if we move to avoidance coping, what it's going to do is create those unpleasant thoughts and feelings to remain. And it's also associated with lower quality of life. So switching from avoidance coping to approach coping, why don't we do a couple of examples of this so that you can see how it looks like in action. If I am actually putting into place approach coping, I might think, I'm stressed and I'm overwhelmed with my assignment. But if I let the approach coping kick in, what I'll do is begin to think about it in terms of, I will make a plan where I break down the task into manageable chunks and actually be able to complete it. And if I look at approach coping from a secondary control as an example, I might think, I'm obsessed or I'm stressed about my financial future and whether I can afford to live in Canada. And when I let the approach coping check in, I might rephrase it in a way where I will talk to my friends, I will talk to my family, and I will talk to a mental health professional about these feelings. Let's take it to the domains of wellness. This is my favorite slide, and this is really a great way of looking at different ways that we can approach our loneliness and create strategies to combat our loneliness. One of the things that I love about this slide is that it really shows us there is not one simple way of dealing with loneliness. Rather, that when we are looking for solutions, they are usually multifactorial. There's usually a number of things that we can do together to move towards feeling less isolated. In terms of the domains of wellness, for example, we can look at exercise, and we can look at the ways that exercise can really create an opportunity to connect with others, going for a walk, going to the gym. We might be meeting folks, but also the simple act of actually doing exercise, going for a walk, getting our heart rate up can have a massive impact on our stress level. We can also, at times, seek out psychotherapy and or the support of a psychiatrist. And while not every individual who is lonely may seek psychotherapy as a way of combating their feelings of isolation, it's really important for us as a society to destigmatize individuals who are seeking professional support. It's normal, it's natural, and it's okay. Nature. We really take nature for granted. And when folks move to Canada, their first reaction when they see the cold, when they see the snow, may be to hibernate. But the importance of nature for us as humans cannot be denied. There has been massive amount of research into biophilic design, really bringing nature into our houses. So if for whatever reason we cannot go out for a walk, we cannot go out and see nature and see trees and see flowers, we can also bring nature in. So research has shown, for example, in hospitals, having something as simply as a small plant beside a bedside can improve healing. Nature really is a great healing mechanism for our souls. Supportive relationships. Again, lots of studies have shown the huge benefit of strong relationships in our lives. Having a mentor, having someone to connect with, to support us, to learn from can be hugely, hugely important in our lives. Another strategy might be looking at mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness and meditation can look differently for different individuals. For some of us, mindfulness may be being alone, meditating alone in silence. For other folks, the concept of mindfulness can be in drinking a glass of water, being mindful of how that water is coming into our system, how it is replenishing us, how it is really healing us as we take that sip of water. This slide actually will take you to our website. Over the last couple of years, we have been developing a number of information sheets for international students on topics such as culture shock, test anxiety, the winter blues. Please take a moment and visit our site and look at ways that you can encompass these strategies in your day-to-day life. For many folks, when they first come to Canada, and even for folks that have been here longer, it's really important that we also provide you with an overview of some of the free mental health resources that exist for students. Please take a moment and look at some of these resources and feel free to connect with them as needed. If you're interested in learning more about CICMH, the Centre for Innovation in Campus Mental Health, please take a moment and visit our two websites, campusmentalhealth.ca or morefeetontheground.ca. Thank you for joining us for our session on stress. We really hope that these strategies are helpful to you and that you'll be able to incorporate them in your day-to-day life. Again, if you have more questions about supports across Canada, you can visit our website, campusmentalhealth.ca. www.healthcare.ca.